One.
Let's
And we're
go
live,
ahead
gentlemen.
and see
Dr.
what they
Neil
have to say.
Reardon. Am I saying that right?
Yes, sir.
And Mel Gibson. How are you,
Hello,
sir?
hey, how you doing?
Welcome aboard, folks. First of all, thanks for coming here. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Very nice to
welcome.
meet you.
No, it's cool
Thank
to
you.
be here.
Nice to meet you, too. So this, you wanted to come in and talk about stem cells.
Yeah.
So what's your experience
Everyone should
been,
want to
and
talk about
what
stem
is,
cells. No one
what's
is.
this calling that you have here?
Well, I was initially it was for my dad, who was, he was 92, and he was doing all the old man stuff. His hip was killing him, and he was like he had multiple problems. I mean, I won't get into the whole litany of complaints, but
Terminal
hey,
illnesses.
Your engine starts
That's what he
wearing
had.
out. You got to replace the carburetor and a few other things. And I took him to the Mayo Clinic. Great place. If I ever get into serious trouble, that's where I'm going. And they were fantastic there, but they were able to say, "Oh, you got to leave me here. He'll be dead in 48
point.
hours." I'm like, "Oh."
To a
So
point.
They clocked
Because
every
they
problem that he
didn't
had.
do what he had to leave the country to
Everything
do.
from, the prostate to the hip to the kidneys to the heart to the lung, the whole deal. And they stabilized him. They said, "Okay, we'll do this and we'll do this," and they did some,
They gave him pain meds.
orthodox medical
That's what
procedures,
stabilized means.
all allowed in this country, and they were great. But I still had reservations about him getting a hip replacement because he was old, and of course, just the recovery from a traumatic surgery at that age is like it's a
They
big
wanted
deal.
to do a hip
And,
replacement at 92 with terminal
What can I
illnesses.
do? My brother says, "Why don't you
That's
look
how
into
great
adult
the Mayo
stem cells?"
Clinic
I'm
is.
like, I've heard things about this,
Okay, so far we've seen Mel Gibson give the background as to how he got introduced to the idea of stem cell therapy and applying it to his father's poor health. His father had multiple terminal illnesses, organ failures, and they were wanting to give him a hip replacement at 92. Talk about trying to suck money out of somebody. If the guy's already like in a wheelchair bound, and he's 92 with organ failure and multiple terminal illnesses, and they're giving him pain meds. Why the fuck are they trying to push a fucking hip replacement, knowing they have to know what Mel Gibson's about to tell everybody? They have to know that the science is available to not need that hip replacement like that, or to allow this man to lay there in terminal illness. And these are supposed to be doctors. So let's go ahead and see and react to the rest of this interview. If you want to see the full interview, go over to Joe Rogan's channel, huge channel, a lot of great interviews on there. Recommend watching it, get a different perspective on things. But let's go ahead and see some more information, some more about this interview and what exactly Mel Gibson has to do to get his dad healthy. Remember, his dad's terminally ill. His dad's going to go from terminally ill in a wheelchair, okay, to healthy, not needing any medication. Let's see how he did it.
And of course, a buddy of mine who was a Mayo doc, he said, "Stay away from those witch doctors down in Panama." He said, "It's like leprosy and banana boats and three-legged dogs, And I'm like, can we call them? And
Anything to get you to not
Brad
find
and I got
out
on the
and
phone
go.
to Neil, and who else was it?
It's Dr. Paz, our medical
Yeah,
doctor.
it was the two of these guys. And so they're talking highfalutin terms, medical, all being medicos. They know what a mesenchymal stem cell or mesenchymal, how do you say it?
Mesenchymal, yeah.
Mesenchymal, and cytokine, mesenchymal cytokines, out of sight, out of kind, as far as I'm concerned. But it's like they give us the wristwatch show over the phone for about an hour, and the doctor's asking them questions that I can't even think of. So when we hang up, I said, "Now, translate. What does all that mean?" He translated a few things. He says, "It sounds kind of interesting, pretty good, And from being a naysayer, he said, "Let's call him back." And I think we called you right back.
Yeah, the more
And
they
we
looked
spent
into
another
it,
hour on the phone.
the more they were
And,
like, wait a minute,
Well,
there's
to his
something
credit,
here.
Brad asked for a bunch of literature, and I sent him maybe 30 articles, and most physicians wouldn't even look at it, but it was all
Yeah,
relevant
'cause they
to
don't
what
wanna
Hut
know.
had. And, for the heart
Big
heart
Pharma
problems, and kidney
doesn't
problems,
want that
and,
education.
orthopedic problems.
Yeah.
And he read all the articles, and he read the upside, the downside, and then we had to his credit, then we had a very educated talk after that.
Conversation, yeah.
Yeah.
And he was really, by this time informed. And he just said to me, well, he's 92. He says, what the hell have you got to lose? And I said, no, nothing. Let's
should
go.
say that,
So I'm up
you
for
know.
it. We asked
You
him, is
don't
he
have-
up for
shouldn't
it?
have
He
to
goes,
be
hell
92
yeah.
to get
'Cause
this
he's,
done now.
they took him
That's
into
the
the
thing.
hospital. He was 92, and they said, what medications are you on? And he said, I'm not on any. And they said, you're 92 years old. How do you account for not being on any medications? He says, because I stay away from doctors and hospitals.
That's exactly how
And,
you stay off
and
medication.
he didn't have any problems. He started to have a rough trip. Well, we took him down there, and he got, I think it was like a double dose in the hip. I think
Yeah.
he gave
So
him-
where did you have to go? This is not legal in America. Is that what's going on?
Yeah. Right now, there are clinical trials going on in the U.S., but it's not broadly available. And in Panama, they passed a law in 2004 which allowed doctors actually to go down there to be able to treat people with using adult stem cells. So the bill was actually designed to prohibit the use of embryonic stem cells. And in the same law, they said it's okay to use adult stem cells, including those from umbilical cord, basically from ethical sources. And so
Ethical sources.
in
Big
Panama,
Pharma.
they
don't-
gave
they
us
don't-
we
they
have a
want that
license from the
locked
Ministry
away.
of Health to manufacture and use those cells in addition to doing clinical trials there. So it's one place on the planet where you can get really high quality umbilical cord, this type of cell. There are two major kind of stem cells. We only work with one kind, the mesenchymal, or we just call it MSC. It's a lot easier. And so anyway, that's how I think we were actually to get treatment. We were quite hesitant to take him, because the last thing you want is Mel Gibson's dad to drop dead in your clinic, and he wasn't in great shape, So,
he wasn't in good shape at all.
but as I recall, when he got there, he was in a wheelchair and really wasn't talking a lot and things like that, and having a pretty rough time. And then so we, after getting medical clearance for him to actually fly down there, and Mel flew him down there privately, then we did some IVs on him first in the clinic, and then to do the hip, we need to do
When
that.
you said did some IVs, what do you mean?
So we give the umbilical cord. These are isolated from the basically the meat of the umbilical cord. They're isolated, then they're grown in our laboratory, which is ISO 9001 and very high quality and certified by the Ministry of Health. They're grown in the laboratory and they're certified to be free of everything, any kind of infectious disease and
I went into the clean rooms and they make you put on like hats and gloves, and you feel like all Frankensteined out, and you walk into these cold rooms and you're watching cells divide under the microscope. It's kind of miraculous, really, to look at this stuff.
So intravenous stem cells.
Right, intravenous, that's correct.
And what's the benefit of intravenous stem cells? Like, what does that do?
Well, the good thing is that this kind of stem cell, the mesenchymal stem cell, they're found throughout your body, and normally what they do is they modulate your immune system, they decrease inflammation, and they stimulate regeneration. So, and the good thing about them is they tend to home to areas where there is inflammation. So intravenously, they do a lot of things, but they can home to areas of inflammation, and they really reduce inflammation in the body because they upregulate part of your immune system that controls the inflammatory process, which I can talk more about later. But in his case, his kidneys were in trouble, his heart was in trouble, and the cells, they don't, unlike what we used to think in the early days, they don't become anything. This kind of stem cell does not become anything in your body, but it homes to areas that need repair, and it secretes things that stimulates the repair and decreases the inflammation and helps out with the immune system. So the vast majority of what we treat are autoimmune diseases. And in Hut's case, we gave him IVs so that he could basically have these things on board secreting the cytokines and the growth factors that are normally secreted. And when you're 92 and you have multi-organ failure, you're basically running on fumes. And so you put these day zero young healthy cells, and they secrete these things that kind of restarts everything.
Yeah.
And so what was his response to this IV treatment?
Wow. I could I can wax lyrical about that. He's almost 100 years old. And from pretty bad shape, it was like bee stings. It was like he got a new lease of life. Like he got a big dose locally in the hip, which fixed all his inflammation and pain, and he started walking again. And his kidneys were good, and his heart, he had a prolapsed valves in there, and they healed. And his cognitive powers improved. His eyesight improved,
Whoa.
you know, and other stuff improved that he would hate me to talk about.
Okay, like I said, you could see the full interview on the Joe Rogan, JRE Clips show, I think it's called, or the full interview with Mel Gibson. I suggest you look into this stuff. If you have, I mean, why is it that a person has to go to Panama to have this kind of stuff done? You know, and then you've seen how the doctors at the Mayo Clinic were, right? They were, you know, they were like, oh, that's like, you know, third world country shit. You don't want to go there, man. It's, you know, donkeys and bananas and, you know, whatever the hell else he was saying to them, you know. But they were trying to do everything they could to discredit that type of research down there, which they're not allowing here. Why? Why? You have to ask why. Oh, Big Pharma, right? We know why. Big Pharma, you know. And this is ridiculous. People should be outraged about this. Absolutely outraged. And I don't understand why no one talks. Well, I kind of understand why no one talks about it. I mean, if you understand how the mainstream media works, then you know why no one talks about it. You know, it's like right up there with Israel. You know, if Big Pharma can't hurt profits, you know, we gotta, you know, practice this type of capitalism where we prey on the vulnerable and take advantage of problems, and then even worse on top of it, they cultivate these problems. Because when you look at the food industry and how that's tied into medical, you know, a lot of these problems, health problems that people have, would be avoidable if, you know, we saw personal health as a right, not just a privilege. You know, it's kind of both. You have to be responsible to a point for yourself, but we should have these on, like, stem cell therapy on every block in this country, like, and this should be a main focus of it. People should be wanting to come here for it, you know, instead of people with money, you know, having to go to Panama. And if Mel Gibson didn't have money, he wouldn't have been at the Mayo Clinic to begin with, and he didn't want to discredit them. He tried to give them some credit. So, like, with certain things, he would go there. But he has to understand, too, to a point where they had all this stuff that he just did is right there available, and they have a closed mind on it. This is academia said, fuck that, you're not allowed to do it. And who's paying for the textbooks and the education that is being given to these doctors in this country? Big Pharma's got a big say in that. You have to know that. So I just think that, you know, I wanted to show this because I think that this is a topic that more people should be concerned about. You know, I'm not a young man myself. I mean, if I had the money and I had something terminal, I would definitely be calling down there and seeing if there was a way that I could, you know, one, get an appointment, and two, afford it. Even if I had to max out all my credit cards, I wouldn't care. I'd rather be alive and in debt than, you know, deal with the Big Pharma way of treatment. You know, so, you know, if you want to take the red pill, sometimes you have to face the hard truths. And the hard truth is that, you know, we have a way of getting people to buy into lies in this country. And, you know, healthcare's right up there with politics and religion. So until the next video, you know, you decide for yourself. What pill do you want to take? Red pill, or you prefer the blue pill and live in ignorant bliss?